Hey everybody, Ben F the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Tournament Rosters Vampires. So, Vampires dropped at the end-ish of last year, and due to a confluence of magnificent events, I've not got round to actually making this video. In fact, I had it prepped, but I just didn't get a chance to make it. Now, Vampires were completely refreshed, basically, for this edition, and they've turned from a really interesting challenge team to potentially one of the most exciting and unique to play teams in this edition of Blood Bowl. And they've got some pretty powerful tools to play with and some pretty great stars too. So Vampires at tournaments have gone from kind of a bit of a joke attempt to being a serious contender. Now, before we jump in fully on Vampires and the different tournament rosters that you can run for them, one thing we have to discuss is the Vargeist. So, the Vargeist is the big guy that was added to this team. It is a big, chonking, strength 5, frenzy, claws piece of work, piece of meat. It's got Bloodlust 3+, which makes it a little less reliable with the way that Bloodlust works. Now, if you fail and don't bite a guy, it is a turnover, but there's kind of a sneaky hint as to how to play this team more effectively. Is sometimes you just have to let your player's bloodlust and cause that turnover. Just allow it to be the last thing you do, or allow it to be okay, or quite simply just have a thrall where you want to go. So there's a lot of ways to manage bloodlust that stop it from being the worst thing in the world. Now, the Vargeist. The Vargeist is an interesting piece. Hey, it's up to you as to whether you like to run him or not. I found him to be a lot of fun, but I do like big guys in Blood Bowl. Big guys tend to bring big variance, okay? When they work, they are frightening. When they don't work, they are frustrating. Now, the cool thing about the Varg is 150. If you don't want to take the Vargeist, for all of these rosters, if you're not a Vargeist player, and it's kind of split 50-50, you drop the Vargeist, you take any other vampire instead, and a thrall. So you can take the Varg, big lad, makes a big impact, or you can drop him down and take one of the other vampires. You're normally looking at taking one of the Blitzer vampires and an extra thrall to back him up. And actually, that's perfectly acceptable. Now, I've included him in a lot of these rosters because actually I'd rather you had in your mind, right, I can afford all this stuff, and then you can tailor it to your liking. It's easier to add 2 players than it is to kind of take 2 away and add a big guy. Plus, the Vargeist is cool. We've been waiting ages for a big guy for vampires, and Games Workshop actually listened. And they delivered. Okay, so we're going to delve into the rosters now. Now, historically, we've looked at 2 different sizes of teams. We've looked at 1100 TV and 1200 TVs. That's 1.1 million and 1.2 million. We're not going to do that. We're going to look at 1.15 million. Now, this is the match play guidance as to, this is the size you should be running your tournaments at from Games Workshop. And quite frankly, a lot of the independent tournaments are just running 1150 anyway. So while the other videos we've done for tournaments, you can add a bit, you can take a bit away. We're just going to start at 1150 here, and you can take a little bit away, or you can add a little bit. So it feels like a more appropriate kind of middle ground to start with. Now, we're going to start by looking at the team without any star players. And we've got a little bit of a little bit of spice of our rosters here on the side as well in the different skills that will be beneficial for players. So we'll start off with the vanilla team, no stars, and we can talk through some of the skills you might want to allocate to these players to make them really, really, really potent. So the 1150 mix at 5-4. Now, with vampires, historically, you kind of built a roster and you had X vampires and Y rerolls. I'm not going to move away from that because fundamentally, it's still the kind of thing that feels right. That might just be from legacy, that might just be from playing vampires, but also I think it's a nice way to benchmark kind of where you're going. So at 1150, 5 vampires, 4 rerolls. Now there's some flexible accounting you can do to change that up, but actually this roster comes in at 1140, so 1,140,000. You get the Vargeist, you get 2 vampire throwers, and what we've done here is we've given you 1 blitzer, 1 runner, and 8 thralls. That gives you 13 players total. 13 players. You've got 5 vampires. Now remember, those vampires are going to be eating your thralls. So you start off with 13 players, and actually you can kind of count on once or twice a game, if you're playing Bloodlust in a way that you're going to accept some turnovers, 1 to 2 thralls are going to get eaten. If you are going gung-ho, 3 to 4 thralls are going to get eaten. So this is a super important little number. In other teams, it doesn't matter quite so much, but this is a tournament. You're going to be making big plays, and you are going to want your thralls there to be extra fodder. But in addition, and this I think is really important, when you're looking at vampires and you're looking at running them in a tournament, yeah, your opponent is going to also know that it's quite key to take out the thralls. So you're going to be eating your thralls, your opponent's going to be stomping and punching your thralls, and they are fragile. Strength 3 is fine. Armor 8+ is a little bit vulnerable, and when you're punching them and your opponent's punching them, well, there's only so many times they're going to be able to get back up again. And also, thralls, the best case scenario if you're chomping them is a stun result. That can feel like forever. They're stunned, and they can get up, and then they can move 3. In 2 turns, they've moved 3 squares. Now, you can eat them on the ground, which helps, but again, bear that in mind. So, skills, starting from the top, let's look at the Vargeist. The Vargeist is a strength on a primary, so we're looking at Brawler if he's going to be in the thick of it, Jugs, Mighty Blow, Block or Pro if they've got a double. Now, the Vargeist is awesome. Having Jugs, Juggernaut, is very good. If you can give him block, you definitely should consider giving him block. Now, I'm big on giving pro to any and all of the vampires. It's not bad. It's just going to keep you more consistent. But with this tournament roster, with this amount of players and this amount of rerolls, you can get away with it. With 4 rerolls on your roster, you should be able to reliably activate your vampires most of the time. You're going to get caught sometimes, absolutely, but most of the time you should be able to do what you want to do. So 4 rerolls, if you're using them to make sure that your vampires activate, you're good. Vargeist has Loner 4+. He's going to play a tune that is very much his own. So while Mighty Blow can be super tempting, Block or Juggernaut is going to massively help what he's trying to do. Pro is going to massively help him stay activated and doing what you want him to do without having to use those rerolls, because you're not going to have access to them. Ah, the Vargeist. I set up an awesome blitz on the ball carrier. I'd moved 2 vampires in, hypno-gazed, cleared a path. He made the blitz, he got the bloodlust, he ran in there and he skulled. Didn't have Juggernaut. Juggernaut would have been fine because this guy's got Frenzy. So Juggernaut is an excellent skill. Block is even better. You will not be criticised taking pro, but this is a combat piece and you want him to be hitting because that claws and frenzy is going to give you a really good opportunity to take out some of the toughest targets in the game. So if you're going to take the Vargeist, I think Jugs is probably the best primary pick. Pro or Block. Pro is pretty good on a double for this player. You're going to get those activations, and then if I'd run that, I'd roll that both down with Pro. A 3+ would have given me a chance to reroll one of those dice, so it's also not bad. So the Vargeist, if you're going to take him, bear that in mind. Vampire Throwers. Right, Vampire Throwers are the best vampires. They are up there with the best players in the game. They are the second best thrower in the game after, obviously, the Skaven Thrower. Because they're just like, you know, they take the best bits of Josh Allen and they just make him better, right? So we've got Bloodlust 2+ on these guys. That's the most reliable you can potentially be. Strength 4, Edge 2+. Movement 6 is a little bit slow, but you're fine. Passing 2+. They've got Pass, they've got Bloodlust, they've got Hypno-Gaze. They've got a great few skills. Vampires. Pro is pretty good, but in a tournament setting, in a roster like this, when you've got 4 rerolls, Pro does not have to be ubiquitous. In a league, Pro is fantastic. It keeps the vampires doing vampire things. In a tournament, if you've got 4 rerolls with these players that don't have Loner, you can come away from Pro, and then you can look at some of the other skills. Block, Dodge are fantastic on this player. I wouldn't worry about leader, and I wouldn't worry about on the ball in a tournament environment for these guys. It's a cool stretch goal, but actually what you want your vampire here, the throwers are your kind of stars of this team. They're going to be covering left, they're going to be covering right, they're going to be dispatching the ball, and they're going to be a really effective blitzer. So Block is going to keep them safe, Dodge is going to keep them moving, and Pro is going to keep them active. Pro is the safest option. You're not going to feel bad about having Block or Dodge. It is Block first. Pro, Block, Dodge. It's really how you want to play them. I wouldn't worry about dodge unless you can stack skills. Pro and block should be the first and best picks for the thrower here. Okay, then we've got Blitzer. So in this roster, we've got one Blitzer and one Runner. At 1140, you can afford to upgrade 100k of Runner into 110k of Blitzer. So you can take any two of those two. So we've got them both here for the purposes of showing. Now, the Blitzers. The Blitzers are very similar to the thrower, just with no throwing skills and worse bloodlust. It feels bad, but don't worry too much about it. They've got Juggernaut as well, which makes them effective. If you're taking two Blitzers and a Vargeist, you're going to have to keep them in combat. If you're blitzing or blocking, you get +1, so you're only bloodlusting on a 2+, so it's not so bad. And with 4 rerolls, they're going to be able to do what you want them to do. So the Blitzers aren't so much of an issue. If you've got all 3, you might get a little bit ropey, but like I said, with this roster, the 5-4, you've got enough rerolls so that they can keep active when that goes wrong. Which means you get to use that skill to kind of do what you want to do with the Blitzer. Obviously, we've talked to the high heavens about Pro, but block on these guys is going to be great. There's dodge is going to be great too, but, you know, Pro to keep them active, block because they want to punch. They do have Juggernaut, but with Vargeist, Blitzer, you only get 1 blitz per turn, so Jugs is a bit irrelevant. And block is also a really fantastic defensive skill too, and they are going to be in the mix. Now, having 2 vampire throwers and 2 blitzers will give you a brilliant mix of vampires. That's 4 strength 4 movement 6 edge 2+ pieces. That's flipping awesome. So having the blitzers either have pro to keep them active or block to keep them fighting is wicked. But there's a couple of cool things you can do with them too. So having good strength access. If you want to go full murder, you can chuck a bit of mighty blow on with them. If you're not taking a Vargeist and you can stack skills, Frenzy's quite funny on them, especially because you've got Jugs. They're strength 2. They've got strength 4, so you're getting 2-die blocks. 2-die block with Frenzy and Juggernaut is basically going to be a 4-die block. So you can build your own mini Vargeist. So if you're not going to take the Vargeist, Blitzer and a Thrall will kind of feel that. You could be tempted to do Frenzy. It is suboptimal, but block is probably the best thing you can do with them. It's a bit boring. You can take guard as well, but I would be remiss without mentioning the fact that Strip Ball goes beautifully well alongside Juggernaut. So bear that in mind, that you can make a little push and ball pops out potential with the Blitzer. And the reason that that's definitely worth calling out is that you've got other vampires, and other vampires can use Hypnogaze to remove tackle zones, which means you're going to get a really solid attack at the ball carrier. So I do not mind having a vampire Blitzer with Strip Ball, bearing in mind that he's going to be the ball hawk. My other vampires are going to take the tackle zones away. He's going to run in there, and normally ball carrier, strength 4 is going to give you 2 dice. That is anything but a double skull. Everybody said that on the pitch, right? Anything but a double skull is going to give you a result that pops the ball out. That's very effective. And if you're going to be taking some vampire runners, you've got a cool option to swoop in and pick it up. Now, the vampire runner's got 1 less strength. It is bloodlust 2+, so it gives it a bit more reliability, but it is also movement 8. This is where I'm talking. This is what I love. This guy is a fantastic elven catcher. Edge 2+ as well. Hypnogaze is wonderful. Movement 8 is just a ton of range. Now, there is an element here where you will not be able to just run them into the backfield and have them there ready to go. They need to stay close enough to your team towards this end of a half. Okay, if your thralls are running low and your rerolls are running low, there is a vulnerability there. But movement 8 is just an absolute ton of space. The vampire runners, for me, have been really effective at just using that space and just being a very mobile, Edge 2+, movement 8, very mobile Hypnogaze caddy. So you can move them around and you can switch off a tackle zone and allow you to get the blitz on the ball carrier that you need to just walk into the end zone with your standard vampire. Because if your vampire with the ball is within scoring range but he's tagged, marked by an opposing player, you use another vampire to run up and try and Hypnogaze. If there's no tackle zone, you don't need to make the dodge roll. If the Hypnogaze doesn't work, or if they bloodlust and have to wander over there and bite a thrall, you still got the option of that dodge roll, but it's just a really effective little 1-2 punch. So I do love the runner. In this roster here, I mean, I don't know if I'd take 2 runners, 2 throwers and a Vargeist, or actually I like having the third Strength 4, Edge 2, please. Having one runner as a mobile Hypno Caddy is actually really effective. So this is why this is done like this. Good spread. Now, the Vampire Runner, you can take block. It's useful. They're only Strength 3. Dodge is better at Movement 8 with Edge 2 plus for what they want to do. They want to be moving around and taking away tackle zones. Or, quite frankly, as soon as you're within 8 squares of the end zone, as long as you've got a reroll, right? 2 plus with a reroll, they are a very, very effective scoring threat. You got some other bits you can do, sidestep, sprint, sure feet, but realistically, dodge, if you're not going pro, dodge is the second. Dodge is probably better than pro on the Vampire Runner. Bloodlust 2 plus, and with this roster you've got 4 rerolls, so you're pretty reliable. Then you've got thralls. If you're in a tournament and you're choosing skills, don't worry about giving skills to your thralls, with the exception of kick if you've got one laying around. If you're looking at a skill set here, vampires are tier 2, so if you're looking at a bigger tournament skills package where there's 7 or 8 skills, there's no stacking, then actually kick on one of your thralls is going to be absolutely wonderful. If you get a double, then you've got some great stuff you can do there with guard, or guard is probably the best one to do, but kick on one of your thralls is going to be great. It's just going to be able to split your opponent's team. You've got good strength, you've got great mobility, great agility, so that you can use that strength in the right place. Kick is just going to be really effective too, and a sure hands guy doesn't go amiss. I've not said sure hands for any of these ones because they're all Edge 2 plus, right? Edge 2 plus, sure hands is just not going to be as useful. Sure hands, you're picking up the ball once, twice a game. You got to hope you're picking up with that player. If you've got block, you're going to be using it once or twice a turn, because you may punch and then you may get punched. So block is just a superior skill in that regard. And we got 4 rerolls. Now, this may seem rich in rerolls, and you may be looking at this going, I've been running vampires, I wouldn't take 4 rerolls, I would take 3. That's totally okay. But having that extra reroll, the only thing you can sort of change it down to, put that reroll together, get rid of a thrall, and you can buy an extra Vampire Runner. Again, you're depleting your numbers and you're depleting your reserve. I don't mind getting rid of a reroll and taking an Apo to keep my players up there if you're feeling more confident, but that 4th reroll allows you to put all of your skills on the players that you want to have them on the pitch. So, as a starter for 10, I like this roster, but you will sometimes go, I've got too many rerolls. I wish I had an Apothecary. And if you take the Apothecary, you're gonna run out of rerolls. But if you want something a bit more juicy, we can go max Vamps. So, 1 Vargeist, 2 Throwers, 2 Blitzers, 2 Vampire Runners, 6 Thralls, gives you 13 players. You get enough for 2 rerolls, and this comes in bang on 1150. So, if you want to go full vampires, you can do it. And this is kind of what I was just talking about. The more vampires you take, the less resources you've got to keep them doing what they want to do. So the downside of running 7 Vamps with only 2 rerolls and only 6 Thralls is that they're going to eat some Thralls sometimes, and you are going to eat your rerolls sometimes, and you're going to end up in a position where sometimes you are going to turn over mid-stream, essentially. In the middle of what you're trying to do, you are going to go, I wish I had a little bit more. But you can do it. I think you might be able to find a mid-range here where you drop a Blitzer or a Runner and take that extra reroll and kind of go 6-3. But I wanted to show what a good mid-range roster and then the more extreme full vampire roster, just because this will be fun, and if you roll hot, it's going to go wonderfully for you. Okay, let's look at some star players. This is a Sylvanian Spotlight team, so they get... was there any really good star players other than Cheney? Yeah, I guess the Chainsaw Lad Bryce. But the new vampire star players are kind of where it's at. Ivan Death Shroud, Carla the Hat Lady, Karina, sorry, the Hat Lady, or Carla von Fangs, and the Count. The Count is amazing. Ivan Death Shroud is really good too, and Hat Lady is also very potent, but we're going to start off with the Count 2-3 roster. We've got Count Luther von Drakenborg, we've got 2 Vampire Throwers, 10 Thralls, 3 rerolls for a roster of 13 players at 140k over 1 million. So at 1150, this is what you can get on your roster. Now you're going to look at that and you're going to go, oh, I really wish I had another vampire Ben. Well, you can drop a Thrall and a reroll and take another vampire with there if you want to just beef it up a bit. But this roster, you are going to be relying on the Throwers to be your wingmen to the Count. Now the Count is epic. He has movement, I think 6. He's not super fast, but movement 6 is great. What he is strength 5 and edge 2+. And he has got bloodlust, nothing. He does not have bloodlust. This is as if you just went, oh, wouldn't it be cool if my ogre was fast and an elf? Yes, it would, and you get to play that on the pitch. This is a really interesting roster. If you're going to be running the count 2-3 here, you are not going to be playing vampires as much as you are going to play the count. And if you have played against a Griff roster or a Hackflem roster where they've binned off the team and they've focused entirely on a star, it's a ton of fun. But the count is going to be the best defense and the best offense. And the brilliant thing, and the thing I love about this roster, is that, do you know what? You've got the count and your fail case is 2 vampire throwers who are brilliant. So you got the count doing count things. You got an army of thralls up front, and you got 2 vampire side pieces just supporting. It's not a fast roster, but it is going to be consistent and strong and agile. So it's a really entertaining way to do it. And the point is, you can take an absolute bomb star in Count Luther at 1150 with 2 vamps and 3 rerolls. At the count 3-2 is exactly what I was just talking about. You drop a thrall, you drop a reroll, and you can boost up and add one of your other vampires just to give you more bitiness. Okay, so let's move down the star player rankings ever so slightly. We've got Karina, Captain Karina von Rees, or Carla von Fangs. Excellent star player, just around about the 200k mark, and gives you a ton of versatility here. So she's running movement 7, she's strength 4, she's edge 2+, she does have bloodlust, she's got some good skills to boot, but because of that decreased price tag, you can take her alongside the rest of a vampire roster. And in essence, what you get here with the 1150 Karina 3-3, what you're doing is you're upgrading one of your vampires to be a superb, well, just a better vampire, better movement, a better skill set. So in this roster, you've got the Vargeist and the 2 vamp throwers, as well as Captain Karina. Everything we said about the Vargeist is true here. You can drop the Vargeist, take a Blitzer and an extra thrall and boost up your numbers. This one gives you 9 thralls, 3 vampires and Karina, so you've got 13 players and 3 rerolls anyway. I guess in this roster, you're doing the same thing you're doing normally, but you've got 4 vampires and one of them is Karina. That's it. That's the plan here. You've got an option to take this really cool star player. I don't know if this is better than 5 vampires. This is going to be the question for you, is actually, because vampires have got such a really cool skill set and a really cool stat line, that sometimes you might feel like a vanilla 5-3 or 5-4 roster is just going to give you more power across the board for a longer amount of time. But the cool thing about Karina, along with a better skill set, is that she's got that extra bit of movement and her special ability. Now, special ability I think is awesome. Once per game, when she fails Bloodlust, when she fails her first Bloodlust, she can bite an opposing player instead. So that's the really cool thing, is that once per game, and she will fail a Bloodlust, and it's going to be a nuisance, but she doesn't have to bite one of your thralls. If she's anywhere near, and at movement 7, edge 2+ with dodge, she's got plenty of mobility. She can wander over to an opponent lineman and just automatically break their armor. That's an automatic stunned result. And she gets to do what she wants to do anyway in the first place. So if you've got 2 opposing linemen next to each other, she can run up, probably 2-die block one of them, and then just auto stab the other. It's a really potent little combination. I'm a big fan of Karina, but I'm a big fan of vanilla vampires. So if you want to get the full vampire experience, then the 5-4 is a great place to start. 5 vampires, 4 rerolls, you can do vampire things. But then if you really want to up it, you're condensing your skill, but you're making it higher. So Karina is a really exciting one, and it's a good roster, this one. And you can change it up a bit. If you're not too fussed by rerolls, you can drop a reroll and take another vampire. So I think we actually talked about that, didn't we? You drop a reroll, you drop a thrall, and you can take one of the other vamps. This is more like it. But 2 rerolls. The thing with this roster here, okay, we've got Varg, we've got 2 throwers, you've got a Vamp runner, you've got 8 thralls. You might be running a little bit low on thralls. The difficulty here is you've got those 2 rerolls. The fun thing about this is that if this is a tournament package, what you can do is chuck leader on one of your throwers. You might be thinking, oh, I'd rather have pro to keep them active. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you, but being able to take leader to give you that 3rd reroll might help you out here. Oh, I don't know. Or you just trust in the heart of the dice and accept the fact that the first Bloodlust that Karina gets anyway is going to benefit you, and just hope not to roll too many others. But let's not forget Cheney. So 1150, you can take Wilhelm Cheney. We like Cheney. Movement 8, strength 4, frenzy, claws, wrestle. This guy is a brilliant scoring threat because you're not really going to stop him from running, and he's also incredibly effective at turning over the ball as well, because strength 4, frenzy, wrestle is just a recipe for disaster for your opponent. Now, at this roster, you got 1 Vargeist, 2 Throwers, a Vampire Runner, 7 Thralls, 3 rerolls. It gives you 12 Thralls. So the watch out of this one is the fact that you do only have 12 players. So your bench is limited, and if you start to lose Thralls, you will end up playing the second half with 8, 9 or 10 players on the pitch. However, one of them is going to be the Vargeist, potentially. One of them will definitely be Wilhelm Cheney. Then you've got 2 of those Throwers, and you've probably got a Runner as well. So actually, you've got a smaller pool of players. It's going to feel a bit sweaty, but sometimes at the end of a game, if you're sitting there with 3 guys on your bench, you kind of think, I wish I didn't have them. What this does give you is this gives you 5 terrifying players on the pitch and still has 3 rerolls. You're thin in numbers, but the numbers are really great, and Wilhelm is just an absolute monster on the pitch. Okay, so vampires in tournaments. Look, vampires are a really interesting team. They're very unique, they're kind of divisive, and that's why there's so many caveats to all of these rosters. The point here is that you may play them and you may not like the Vargeist, in which case you can change them up. You can swap him for an extra Thrall and an extra positional. If you've got too many rerolls, you can drop a reroll and bring an extra Thrall or an Apothecary. These rosters are kind of starting points. As you play vampires, you will learn how to use them better. You will learn to kind of edge on the side of, maybe I don't need as many rerolls, maybe I prefer this. Maybe I can squeak extra vampires on there. But because of the way they play and because of how self-destructive they can be, they're nowhere near as bad as they used to be, but they are still a little bit. Running vampires for the first time is quite the experience. But running them for like the 6th, 7th, 8th time, you kind of... It's like flying an F-16, right? It's always trying to fall out of the sky, and once you kind of accept that, you can learn how to fly it brilliantly. He says, having never flown any plane, let alone an F-16. Anyway, the point is, these rosters are a start. As you play vampires, you will learn what you prefer to do, and this is the really interesting thing. From talking to people who've been playing them at tournaments and stuff, it's a really interesting thing. Some are like, I'd never take the Vargeist. I'd rather take standard vampires, and some are just like, the Vargeist was amazing for me and I'd love to put skills on him. And that's this is why I think this is one of the best rosters Games Workshop has done. I love the new Amazon roster, but there's one roster, right, which is basically all your positionals and other stuff. With Vamps, you've got choices, and this is kind of like, no 2 vampire rosters will probably be the same. You've got some great builds with great stars. You've got some great builds with Vargeist. You've got great builds without Vargeist. There's people who are going thrower, runner, heavy. There are people who are going Varg, thrower, blitzer, and going strength 4 heavy. It depends how you like to play. It depends on the skill set that's available for your tournament. But I do believe that these rosters, specifically kind of the ones we've shown off, are a really good starting point. But more so than any other team, you've got to play it and you've got to find out what you like. This has to be seasoned to your taste. I'm sorry it's not one and done. You've got to put your own toppings on this pizza, but it is a fantastic tasting team. Absolutely love it. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Bubble content. Happy biting. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube Members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.